Hey, Astro Kids, and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about this transit coming up here on March 17th when Venus enters into its exaltation of Pisces. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So, as we come into this conjunction, remembering that previously we had this Venus in a combustion throughout this Aquarius transit. So this will continue. And so as we come into this conjunction, we're moving here into the sign of Pisces. And this is very interesting because the sun is not as strong here in the sign of Pisces. If you recall in our previous videos, we talked about how the sun starts to break down in the sign of Aquarius, right? This is where the sun actually starts to break through the ego. And so as we come into the sign of Pisces, this becomes much more selfless, much more soulful as we're moving into this transit here. So this is interesting as we're coming into this Venus conjunct the sun in the sign of Pisces. Venus is really the stronger one coming into this. Venus is here in its exaltation. And so Venus is much less about luxury, wealth, material gains, as it would be in the sign of Taurus and Libra. But as it exalts itself here in Pisces, it becomes about unconditional love. It becomes about togetherness. Venus here is very refined, where there's a tremendous amount of compassion, a tremendous amount of selflessness. Pisces is that sign that is the last sign in the zodiac. It is where the end of the story, the completion, takes place. And so Venus here is very much about unity, about serenity, about surrendering and coming together in this divine love and unity. And so this is really a time of really letting go of a lot of karmic difficulties. And of course, as we're coming out of Aquarius, Aquarius is ruled by Rahu. So as we're coming out of this Venus and Aquarius from the previous transit, there is some karmic backlog there, right? There's some difficulties or hangups that are connected to our relationships, that are connected to the things that we love, the things that we desire, the things that we find pleasure in. And so, depending on where this actually is taking place in your chart, this really becomes a time of letting go. The way to actually acquire material wealth from this Venus and Pisces transit is to let go, to surrender, to be selfless. By giving and surrendering in this energy, this is where the abundance, where the joy, where the pleasure comes in. As you are surrendering to this divine mission, this divine calling, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the actual Nakshatras, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But this divine togetherness, this divine selflessness of this Venus in Pisces is an energy where the more that you are giving and being open and surrendering, the more is going to come back to you. And what we're also going to talk about is as we come to the end of this transit, Mercury is also going to join in on this conjunction of the Sun and Venus in Pisces. But starting off here, we're also going to see K2 making its fifth aspect over to Venus. And so this really becomes a very spiritual time. And even for those of you who are wanting me to use those three extra planets in there as well, Neptune is also going to be in on this conjunction as well. So there's a lot here in terms of spirituality, in terms of surrender, in terms of giving, of compassion, of selflessness. How selfish or how much are you willing to do things off of greed, right? And we talked a little bit about that when Venus was going through its transit of Aquarius. This is all karmically connected, where that Venus and Aquarius transit, there was a little bit of that Rahu factor of the the selfishness, especially in that combustion with the sun, where are you doing this for the good? Are you doing this for a purpose that is right, or are you trying to take shortcuts? Are you trying to take the wrong path? Are you trying to be very manipulative and cunning about how you want to actually attain things through this Venusian energy? And so this is an interesting transit where a lot of the backlog or the karma or the difficulty that has happened in the past is here for you to let go. Pisces being that sign of ending, of completion, it's time to come to a point of closure. And this is for some of you in your relationships again. This is some of you just in your day to day routine. What are the things that bring you comfort, peace, joy, pleasure? Going into those things and making sure that they are really serving your highest, greatest good, that it is not for this manipulative purpose, that there's not something that is an ulterior motive behind this, and really finding a way to actually be in this space of divine love and devotion. Is this something that really is connected to your soul, right? Pisces, when we think of the sign of Pisces, one of the terms that comes to mind is soul. Pisces is such a deep sign, right? As we get into the sign of Pisces, this is like the deepest depths of the ocean. This energy is very deep, it's very spiritual, it is very compassionate, it is very infinite and spacious and open as we come into this divine love and wisdom and surrendering of Pisces. And so this transit really becomes about selflessness, surrender, sacrifice, and making sure that everything that you are sacrificing for is something that's healthy, something that is for you, something that serves your highest, greatest good. And for a lot of us, making sure that we're also serving other people's highest, greatest good as well. We talked a little bit about that also in a previous video, where now that Venus is here in this Purvabhadra Nakshatra, there is this focus around service, around humanity, around the divine purpose and calling of, are we surrendering towards that highest, greatest good, that highest purpose, that highest mission that is there for us. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual nakshatras that Venus will go through throughout this transit. And we will get a little bit more into how this is actually going to play out. And if you want to see what Venus can give you in terms of material gains, in terms of peace, joy, pleasure, all of these things, then you want to make sure that you go back to the weekly horoscope that I did, where I actually went through each of the signs and how Venus will affect you in your chart. But this is simply looking at it from a macro perspective, looking at the full picture of how is this transit actually going to play out for us as a collective. This is a general reading. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So first of all, Venus is going to come into Pisces in this Purvabhadra Nakshatra, right? This is being left off from where we're at in the sign of Aquarius. And of course, this Purvabhadra Nakshatra is symbolized by two swords. There is this fight for justice, for humanity, for standing up for a cause, for a purpose. This is all connected to this Jupiterian influence of this Nakshatra, which, again, for those of you who are not familiar with the sign of Jupiter, this planet is all about morals, ethics, principles, about philosophy, higher education, wisdom. It's looking at things from this higher perspective, these higher principles in life. And so as we come into this area here of this Purvabhadra Nakshatra, this is all about standing up for a cause, standing up for a purpose, serving the higher good in life. And so, again, as we're in this combustion, and this is in Aquarius finishing out, coming into the sign of Pisces, there is something very cunning about that Aquarius energy on the shadow side. So, of course, on the positive side, Aquarius is the humanitarian. It is about helping, and especially in those last degrees where we have this connection between Aquarius and Pisces, as that is where the ego is completely shattered and we come into this selflessness of Pisces. But there is also that shadow side to Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Rahu, Rahu being the planet that is a head without a body. It's always hungry, it's always looking for something. And so there is something about that energy that's very snake like, that is very much about this cunning, this trickery, this ability to take shortcuts and to get what you want. And so, as we come out of this Venus in Aquarius, it's important to understand that are you doing things that are selfish or manipulative in a way, or are you doing it for a purpose that is good, for a purpose that is connected to your soul, to your highest, greatest good? And are you keeping the highest, greatest good of other people in mind also? Remember that Venus is connected to other people, as its secondary ruler is Libra. And so Venus is very much about how can we accommodate other people? How can we find balance? How can we interact in a relationship in a fair way? And so Venus is connected to justice in that way, of how can we create the fairness and balance between people. And so there is something in this energy as well, especially with Venus in its exaltation of Pisces, of are you being selfless? Are you looking towards other people's needs as well as your own? Are we coming into this place of collective unity? And Pisces is a sign of collective unity. Pisces is the sacrificing, the surrendering, of merging together in this place of love and unity. And so this is a huge focus as we're coming into this transit. Now, as we move into the Atterabada Nakshatra, the energy shifts up a little bit. This is actually controlled by Saturn. And so this becomes a very interesting part of Pisces, because Saturn and Jupiter are not planets that get along very well. And so as we get into the middle of Pisces, it actually becomes much more strategic, much more analytical than the previous part of Pisces that was more about justice, that was more about humanity. This becomes more practical. This becomes more analytical, more about the intellect, the mind. And when we talk about Pisces, it is about the deepest part of the mind, tapping into the subconscious, tapping into your imagination, into your dreams, pulling through that inspiration. And so, as we come into the middle here of Pisces, this also becomes about how do we make a goal or a strategy to make things work in our relationships or in our interactions with other people. And again, this is going to depend heavily upon where this is actually positioned in your chart. But this becomes about what is the strategy to create peace, to create love, to create harmony with this in this Saturnian Nakshatra. Now, Venus is happy here because Venus is friends with Saturn. And so, again, this gives us a lot of intellectual power to tap into as far as building certain strategies and structures that can create that sense of peace and harmony. And this really is about diving deep. The symbol here is the water snake. It is the serpent at the bottom of the ocean. And so it is about diving deep into your issues, into your karma, into your spiritual life, actually going in and building a strategy, building a plan to work through these things. Again, as we're in this sign of Pisces, we're trying to find peace. We're trying to find closure here. This being the last and final sign of the zodiac, this is about ending and completing things coming into this energy. And so finding the best strategy, finding the best approach to actually attack or strike down those areas that need the work and improvement in order to create a certain level of peace. And so this becomes a very technical and analytical part of Pisces. And so when we come into this actual area of Pisces, it is great to use this energy to your advantage. To use this again to build that strategy, to build that barrier, that boundary that is needed. And when we get into the sign of Pisces, boundaries becomes a very difficult thing, right? Pisces is all about love, compassion, romance, togetherness, unity. And so as we come into Pisces, it becomes very difficult at times to actually form healthy boundaries. But in this middle part of Pisces, this is definitely about forming those healthy boundaries, about standing up for what is right, right? When we talk about Jupiter in the previous Nakshatra, it's about the morals, the ethics, the principles. But when we get into the Saturnian influence, it's actually about implementing those morals and ethics into reality. It's about setting the laws, setting the justice, getting things sorted. And especially with this connection here between Venus and this Saturn ruled Nakshatra, this really becomes about justice. Because remember that Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra. So there is a friendship there that's between Saturn and Venus that becomes about creating peace and fairness, right? Bringing about justice, putting in the healthy boundaries, making sure that everyone is taken care of. And so this is a huge factor as we're coming into this arena here of Pisces. Now, as we get into the last nakshatra, this is really where we get into the true Piscean energy and influence. Because Pisces, again, is connected to our imagination, our dreams. And as we come into the Ravati nakshatra, this really becomes about this. This is a Mercury controlled nakshatra. So there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of curiosity that's here, there's this wanderlust to this actual nakshatra of Ravati, where we are dreaming, we're imagining, we're looking, we're searching. This is really where those who are born under this actual nakshatra tend to be very daydreamy, very imaginative people. This is really about pulling in that inspiration, pulling in that ability to be curious and imagine things and really ponder on the possibilities. And so there is this drifting that is happening here in this last nakshatra where we're sort of drifting in and out of reality, right? We're tapping into different states of consciousness and actually exploring different things on different levels of the mind. And so this is very interesting in this last nakshatra here. But this whole entire transit is really about, again, the surrender, the sacrifice, the ability to create unity and serenity. And so, what is it that you need to release at this point? What is it that you need to find closure with in order to actually hold that level of peace and harmony in your life? This becomes a very important factor. And so making sure that we're looking at these actual areas that need work and improvement. Remember that Jupiter is the main ruler of Pisces, and Jupiter is all about luck, prosperity, the higher vision. Jupiter wants the best for you. And so this transit here really becomes about, again, releasing and letting go of those things that no longer serve you, finding the closure, finding the peace with things, and instead coming into a place of serenity and a place of unity. And so, for those of you who have been struggling, who have been going through difficult times in your life, how much are you holding on to that's actually holding you back from your dream, from your vision, from the finalization of your goals? This is very important to look at for many of you here, depending on, again, where this is positioned in your chart. And I do encourage you to take a look at that weekly horoscope where I went through all of the signs and actually also paying attention to what's going on in this video and applying those things, looking at those areas of your life, making sure that everything is where it needs to be. If there are things that are left open and unresolved, really looking at those issues internally, diving deep into it, right? We're in the sign of Pisces, where you want to take a deep dive into these issues. You want to take a deep dive into the thinking and the patterns behind all of this and really understand what is it that you need to let go of? What is it that you need to release? Right? This idea of holding on to things is related to the ego, right? And we talked about that a lot with the sign of Scorpio and the sign of Aquarius, how there are karmic patterns and cycles where we try to hold on to certain things. But ultimately, the reason why Scorpio, being that fixed water sign, comes before Pisces is because you have to let go of those deep, intense issues that you hold on to emotionally. You have to let go of it before it becomes a poison, a toxin that sits in the body. And when we get to Pisces, that last water sign, it's the release, it's the surrender. There is a point where you have to be able to let go and move on from things before they sit stagnant as a poison that actually is eating away at you from the inside. And so this really is a healing energy as we come into the sign of Pisces. This is a time of releasing and letting go of those things, especially along the lines of Venus related issues. And again, you want to look at how this is actually showing up in your chart. And especially for those of you who have Venus as one of your challenge areas of your chart. If Venus is a functional malefic, if it's placed in a difficult position for you, then this is really a time to work through those issues that show up in your chart, right? I always say that if there's something negative in your chart, that is an area to work on. It's not an area to accept that it is a negative part of who you are. And so all of these things are karmic lessons. They are karmic backlog to work through in this life. And this is very important as we're talking about Pisces because Pisces is a last sign. It has experienced everything. It is the one that has been through the whole journey and has come to this point of completion. And so this is your journey right now as we are coming into this Venus and Pisces transit is to come to this place of closure and peace in your life with those areas that you have not let go of yet, especially relationship oriented, comfort, luxury, pleasure, enjoyment, these Venusian related things, coming to peace with that, making sure that these things are not still on hold. Again, that is where that Scorpio energy comes in of Scorpio being connected to K2, which is the planet of karmic backlog. It holds those things, it contains those things that need to be healed and worked through. And Aquarius, even being that Rahu ruled sign that also holds on to things as well. And so when we come into Pisces, all of this starts to degrade. It starts to break down. The ego is, again, broken in Aquarius, and now it has fully been broken as we come into the sign of Pisces. And so that is your horoscope for Venus in Pisces. Awesome transit that we're entering into. Venus is exalted here in Pisces. And even though this isn't a combustion, the sun is a little bit more selfless, a little bit more surrendering in the sign of Pisces. And with the aspect over to Rahu, this really becomes about are your desires, are the things that you are chasing after, are they something that's healthy? Are they something that is really for your highest, greatest good, especially with Rahu being in Taurus in that conjunction with Mars? Remember that this Mars and Taurus transit is very much a determined energy. Taurus being that very stubborn sign, and Mars being very willful. Mars is the soldier, it's here to get things done. And so that energy, that determination of Mars is very steady, it's very solid in the sign of Taurus. Where are the things that you are moving towards, working towards? Are they truly benefiting you? Rahu has this illusionary aspect to it where it is what you desire, it's what you want. But when you get to that goal, is it really everything that you thought it was? Rahu casts this illusion that there's something beyond you that you're searching for that will bring you this fulfillment, that will bring you this happiness, right? And I talked a little bit about this for the Rahu Mahadasha, if that is something that you're going through, because this is going to affect you, especially very heavily going through this transit. And so if you're going through a Rahu Mahadasha, make sure to check out that video. I will leave a link above and down below in the description. But this is really a time of making sure that the things that you want, right? Because Rahu is very much about this endless hunger for more. And it's in the sign of Taurus, especially, which is a very materialistic sign. It's very much about pleasure and comfort as it's being ruled by Venus. And then this is making this aspect over to Venus in Pisces. Venus in Pisces is stronger because it is about love, unity, romance, compassion, selflessness. Venus in Pisces gives you the joy without needing to have to chase after something or needing to have to cling on to something materially. Pisces is at that point of surrendering, where it's no longer concerned with the material things of life. So if you have not checked out that Mars and Taurus transit, this is a huge part of this Venus and Pisces transit that we are currently going through starting here on the 17th. So it's vitally important that you're looking into that, and it is in two parts. So I will leave that down below in the description, where if you are in the first group from Aries to Virgo, then you want to check out that first part of the Mars in Taurus video. If you are in the group of Libra to Pisces, you want to check out the second part. If you have any additional questions regarding this transit, feel free to leave it down below in the comments. If you want a session with me to see how this transit is personally affecting you, I also have my information down below so you can schedule a session with me. If you are interested in learning more in depth about Vedic astrology, there is a course available on Facebook in the group Astrology Lessons with Daquan Jones. Feel free to join. It is also available on Patreon, and I will let you all know when this becomes available on Udemy as well. If you have not checked out those Mahadasha videos, they are coming out now. So those videos are out where you can look at the actual period that you're going through in your life. And the next one will be Venus. So keep an eye out for that if you are looking for those Mahadasha videos. If you have not checked out the Ascendant Sign videos using Vedic astrology, I went into great depth about how these ascendants actually play out and how it's connected to our lesson that we've come into this life to learn, and the whole foundation, our storyline of our life in general. And of course, you want to keep in mind that everyone has different planetary placements and different alignments. And so those videos are really just the foundation or the basis. If you want a closer look at your individual journey or storyline for you, then feel free to set up a session with me. Again, all of that information is down below in the description. If you have anything that you'd like me to talk about in a future video regarding Vedic astrology, feel free to leave that down below as well. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell. And if you enjoyed this video on this transit coming up, it resonated with you, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment. And I hope you all have a great day. I will see you in the next video.